Are we up to episode 6 already?
We're on episode 6, and I have to tell you, most people get the post Passover blues, but not me. Not me. When we have this podcast, the post Passover podcast with Perry, that's a little bit of foreshadowing of what's happening today. I'm
Uh,
really excited. Uh, this is
so
a lot of energy here today.
a lot of energy. We have our guest waiting in the wings. Everyone's on Teams this week, not like last week when you kind of mixed up the invitation. We had some people show up in person, but that's always funny.
So
But yeah, it's funny enough. A lot of the people that we're bringing on are from our local community and are nearby, at least here in Israel. And maybe one of these days we will host in person. What do you think, Jake?
yeah, I think that we keep it easy. We keep it with our friends. And today, I think the setup is interesting. So we've heard a lot about the different marketing folks and then different sales folks. And so today's special friend is going to
Today is
help
definitely
us.
special.
We're going to bring it together. So without further ado, I'm going to give a little bit of a desk drum roll.
Go ahead.
Did you hear that?
Welcome, Perry. Perry, we've got Perry Nalevka from Penguin
Here we go.
Strategies.
Well, Perry in the house.
How's it
Welcome,
going?
I feel that energy is just bubbling through the computer.
Oh,
So we're
there we
very
go.
bad at intros. We're Jake, we can admit it. We're pretty bad at the build up and introducing our guests. We don't really do them justice. So
We'll just let people
Last-
check us out on LinkedIn.
yeah, check out the LinkedIn profile. But Perry for I know Perry for 10 years, right? I alluded to it in the last episode with Daniel. It was Perry's agency, Penguin Strategies, that that was the recommendation, and at the same time had some applications out, and that nudged towards agency. So Perry is the owner and founder of Penguin Strategies. Perry, you could say a few words for your own self intro, or just check out the LinkedIn, like you said.
There you go. Yes, when we met 10 years ago, we were a marketing agency as well as other things. I guess we'll get into that. We are not a marketing agency anymore. We did. If you're not a founder if you haven't done a pivot, right? Pivot.
Right.
I feel like that. I don't know, Friends. You remember that Friends episode? Pivot. Anyway.
Perry,
Yeah, go ahead.
Perry, you've been doing the marketing and operations and marketing agency. So tell us a little bit about the past. How long have you been in this game? How have you always been on the agency side? Have you been an insider? Give us a little bit of perspective.
Yeah, as anybody, I guess, in this industry, I've been in a lot of roles. Actually, my first stop was being a software developer. Back, say the amount of years.
No,
Whatever you're comfortable with.
Listening to this,
more than 10 years ago.
Right.
It was interesting because I thought that's what I wanted to do. Was I got my degree and I was like, okay, everybody's doing software development. That's where it's at. And then I get my first job and they're like, oh, you speak English. We need you to go and explain stuff to customers. But I didn't get the hint. I kept trying to be. So I left that company. It was Amdocs actually. Mm-hmm. They kept flying me out to all these different customers. And then I went to another startup. I started doing coding. Once again, you speak English. You should go visit with a customer. Wow. So that was how it started. And then I moved into product. I didn't know what marketing was at the time. I moved into product. I actually relocated to New York. Spent a few years working for 2 different startups there in the product marketing, product management. It wasn't really product marketing, it was product management. Mm-hmm. And when I came back to Israel, that's when I got into sales, because that makes logical sense, right?
Yeah.
I was consulting for a company, and I told them that they should use their product in a different way. And the CEO said, okay, you should go and sell it. And that's how I got my first sales role. And then I worked there for about 4 to 5 years. I didn't know anything about sales, but there was this new tool on the market. It was called LinkedIn. You ever heard of it?
Yeah, a little bit. I guess.
I think the second user on LinkedIn was me. This is back 2007, 2008, right? And I was getting meetings with all these executives, and the the CEO I was working for at the time was like, "It's this magic you're doing," and so that got me a lot of meetings, closed some deals, and then I worked with, like I said, I worked my way up as a VP of Biz Dev for that company for a while. And then when I finished, I was like, okay, I got a great idea for startup or for a company. It was just like, I'll help people figure out how to use LinkedIn to do sales. Long story short, that turned into, I actually did a brief stint with Octopost, if you know Daniel. So that was like right when he was starting, and then and that kind of turned into a marketing agency, which was 2013 when Penguin was born.
Wow.
And then and you guys, you've met Mark. Yeah. So
you're an entrepreneur. You're an entrepreneur. That's what you are. You had experience in-house, and then you went and you launched. Now it's not necessarily a software company. You're an agency, but I'm sure you're doing with endless software. So, and you're dealing with people like Howard and myself all the time. And you must think, oh, these people, they just don't get it. I'm going to just throw you in here. When you look at your customers like us, what would be something you're saying, you guys, you're amateurs. This is something that you guys are probably you're missing out on. Throw us into
before you jump into that, like I remember at Penguin, one of the things that, back then that we were doing is like we were able to work with a lot of different clients, hear from different marketers, and then be ahead of the latest trend. What's the best way to execute that kind of campaign? I always thought that was some part of the magic.
I think
of the agency.
I think any agency, whether it be any services company that's doing it properly, that's the core, right? You have some really smart people, but it's the aggregate, right? Where, like you said, Howard, is the ability to work with multiple companies and be able to kind of get best practice, like what everybody talks about, these best practices, but the best practices are the ones that you actually have tried yourself, not the top 10 best practices you read on the internet, but what you've really been able to see and do. And that leads to what Jake asked. It's always you get hired as a consultant, as an expert, and these crazy marketers then they don't take your advice.
Yeah.
So, I feel like that's that's where things start to break down, right? You have you want so much and your expectations, but then you feel like you know better, and then you're kind of stuck in that.
Is there like it's like an ego problem? Maybe some marketers think they might know better without knowing the data from a larger set of the industry or business.
Yeah, I feel like it's works its way down, right? I mean, you've all you're in-house now, or you've been in-house, and I feel like sometimes the same thing works within your teams, like the sales team or the CEO. They feel like they know how to do your job better, and then sometimes in your head you're saying like, then why'd you hire me, right? It's like, if you just needed someone to just execute, then that's something else. But I think that's a common problem, and it's not like it's everywhere, but that's one of the things that I feel like you see it. It's the same today with when we're not dealing with digital marketing per se anymore, but we're helping companies leverage their CRM better, right? HubSpot CRM in a much better way. And so there's also a lot of that's what we did in the past, so therefore that's what we're going to do in the future, which I think is really, especially with all the fundamental AI changes that are going on, you've got to be able to be open-minded to think differently.
Yeah, Jake,
so
I remember
when do people come to you? Like if someone's operating and they have I know that you're a RevOps expertise right now, and specifically in HubSpot. What are the signs that maybe I need external help? Like not that I need help, because that's one level of help I can probably offshore talent. But how do I recognize, like, geez, there's way more here that I can't just get a set of hands on Fiverr or Upwork? When do I need to go to the expert?
Or in-house. Like Jake, I know guys, I remember having loads of discussions, me and you, when we were working, saying like, is this something that we need to bring an agency for or do it in-house? I know you're very much on the, in-house. So Perry, when Jake is asking this question, he's asking for himself, when should I ask Perry for help versus do it myself?
Look, things that are it also depends on size. There's so many different parameters on it, and there's so many questions in what you just asked. But Jake, to answer your question and kind of move into yours, Howard, is typically we get called in too late. What do I mean by that? Because when you get called in, it's usually because there's a mess and it's usually bubbles up in the reports. People can't trust the report, right? They're trying to pull a report for sales, for marketing, for CEO, for board, whatever it is, and they're like, in order to get it to look the way they want it, they've got to export 13 from different sources and then play with the number. Where in the perfect world that everybody dreams of is that it's just a dashboard that they can look at every morning and they know that what they see there is true. And when that isn't the case, and then you kind of build workarounds to make it happen, and then so that at least the download will work or the export will work, that's when it's on, quote unquote, too late. And in order to fix it, it's like that tax you're paying or the interest you're going to have to pay now to get it fixed. And then we come in and we'll say, well, it's kind of like implementing it in HubSpot again for you, but it's more expensive or more costly because you're in the middle of work. It's not like we're starting from scratch. So, but that's a big signal that we see, and so that's to your question, Howard. When you call somebody to help you with that, it's you as an in-house person have probably not seen that happen very many times, where you have to kind of rip and replace, whether it's changing CRMs or just redoing what you had. It's better to bring in somebody that's all they do all day, or that they see that all the time, and so they have they can really pull it out and know what questions to ask, know where to go with that. And have a broader understanding of what it is.
So you said you switched or kind of pivoted from being an agency now to doing these kind of changes on CRM side. So what you're saying is, do you find that you're needing to start from scratch? Now just jumping ahead, I know like you're switching to CRM implementation, Salesforce. You was Salesforce, now.
Yeah.
If you're following Penguin, it's strictly HubSpot. Are you starting from scratch? Is that what's happening?
In a way, we feel like we did start from scratch, although we had some of the core facets to it. As we were building Penguin over the first 10 years, we were trying to we capture a customer, and we're going to build all the services that we could possibly build for them, so that we can extract the maximum amount of, I guess no better way, right? We're just the three of us, right? We just want to extract the maximum amount of money from our customers, right? Ultimately, through different things that happened so we started as a content marketing. We did LinkedIn, and we did social media. Then we wrote, then we did webinars, and then we did more and more services, and then we tacked on HubSpot marketing, because at the time they only had marketing
automation,
marketing automation, and then we said PPC, and then we became SEO, and then a few years later, lots of customers have Salesforce, so let's become a Salesforce partner. And you know what happens? I think the end of the story is so clear that I don't know how I didn't see it. Is just that you become a generalist, good at most things, but not great at anything. And that was okay for when everything was going up and to the right, but when 2023 happened, right? And not just the war, but just in general, there was a global crisis, and all the budgets were getting, and so the companies, and rightly so, were saying, I'm just going to pick best of breed. I want the best PPC agency. I want the best SEO. And that writing was on the wall for a while. And so when we had a heart to heart internally, we said, okay, what is it we're most passionate about? What are we best at today that we can build upon? And where do we see the biggest opportunity? And that was when we decided we're going to double down on HubSpot. We also see that they're moving up market. So there's a lot of big projects, a lot of complexity that there wasn't there in the past. And so over a period of 6 months, we had to let go of people, of customers, processes, and rebuild everything. And our goal was to do that by January 1st, which more or less we did. And so today, that's what we are. We're 100% focused on that.
Perry, it's interesting. You've aligned behind a much smaller deliverable on the one hand, much more focused on terms of revenue operations and CRM. And then
more valuable, maybe.
More valuable. So we'll talk about that. But I think we've gone through this stage where we used to tack on an outreach and then a Calendly and then a Chili Piper. And we used to have, so those, it's interesting that you said best of breed, because it used to be that we would buy extra little gadgets for every part. And I think that we had tech bloat. And now it seems actually that we keep on making new requirements, of course, of our software, but there's probably 2 or 3 main CRM players that can deliver all of those. So is it really best of breed?
On that, using best of breed. So I think that the tech bloat happened because, you did want the best of breed. There were times where the HubSpot calendar wasn't enough. You wanted better routing, or someone was using HubSpot and Salesforce. And so you needed something like a Chili Piper or a Calendly in between, on that's just picking on calendars, but there's loads of, other social media tools, right? You mentioned the Octopost and the Hootsuite and blah, blah, other, there are better social media posting tools than what's, at least when I was using the HubSpot social posting, then they were at least better than the HubSpot social posting tool. I think kind of also what's changes maybe is also the priority of the companies. Maybe that's also led to it. What did you see?
Yeah, we're aligning behind major players, but we no longer have bandwidth to evaluate and implement. So what are some of the additional tack-ons that you're seeing that people are still pushing towards that require all of the extra wiring? Because HubSpot, every time I use it, I'm delighted. 1, it's easy. 2, it's got all the newest features and gadgets. So it delights on every account. And even my uses for Zapier are diminished because most things are already plugged in. It's incredible. So what are you seeing is, what are people asking of you in addition to the base level of HubSpot or whatever the variant is? What are the things that people are asking you to just tack on nowadays?
And Howard, if what you said is so, it's on point. But the reality is that the reason we go in and we see all that bloat isn't because if those are the reasons, I could get behind it, or I could argue with it and say, okay, yes, you should use Calendly instead of the HubSpot calendar. But a lot of times it's just because we used it at our last company, used to it, and now it's there, and then you're left. There's a poor guy or girl that's the RevOps leader or the IT person who's stuck with integrating all these tools. And so finding those, finding which reason they're doing it is important. And what was interesting, like we're going through a very big migration right now of a company that is using Salesforce, or will for the next 2 months. 2 months they won't be. Okay, this is a huge company, 1,000+ employees. They were using Salesforce across all of their teams, sales, customer success, and all the rest of their processes and teams. And the CEO and the leadership decided to move to HubSpot. It was a very strange thing, but one thing he said, which is really aligned with the HubSpot philosophy, is if it can't be done in a simpler way, in a way that HubSpot can work, then we're probably doing it wrong. And it's
interesting.
Anyway, you could argue that point a lot of different ways, but at the end of the day, I think that a lot of the problems that companies have with Salesforce isn't because Salesforce is a bad product or what other CRMs. It's because it's possible to do so many different things that you just do it because you can, and it makes for complexity. And I think that one of the things that we're very focused on is making sure that we understand the business, we understand that what's possible, and finding the simplest common denominator, even if it's not perfect, because perfect is definitely it's a never-ending game.
Yeah, I really like that. I think, Jay, we talked about this also before about complexifiers and things like that. I'm guilty of that myself. I love building complex workflows these days, especially with AI and all these great tools that are out there. And you kind of, string things together and you go, boom, look what I can do, fully automated, built this whole thing. But I didn't deploy it. It was just fun to build. And I was like, our business doesn't need this. I'm not going to pay for that. I'm not going to implement that. I'm not going to execute on it because what we are doing strategically doesn't make sense for us. So that was a great insight to understand, like, what does a business, and it's interesting to hear that a large company moving off of Salesforce can recognize what do we need to do as a business to simplify and make it just work, basically.
Perry, in going a bit of a different direction, I can imagine that we know each other from a marketing context, and then we are often trying to track movements and motions from marketing to sales. As you're going more deep into the operations, have you seen now with marketing budgets on a diet, have you seen a lot more effort on account management, on customer success? Have you seen that those product lines within the HubSpot or the general CRM, have those taken new importance as marketing budgets maybe have been slimmed down? Have other areas of focus been really grown? How are we managing? Are we picking up all the signals within the customer for account growth? Are you seeing that?
We're seeing it. We're seeing it on what's been really fun for us is that because we stopped focusing on digital marketing or marketing in general, it's opened us up to a whole new world. And even the types of people that are working at Penguin are not marketing background people, right? They're ops people. They come from sales operations. They come from customer success operations. So they bring in new perspective. And the customers and with their problems are coming with the perspectives and the questions that you're talking about. And I think that the next frontier is across all those three main areas. Some might say four of customer success and support are two different departments. Is the data. I think data it seems to be like the biggest pain point. I talked about reporting before, but it all comes down to the data. And I think if you talk about having external tools, that's the next frontier. HubSpot has not, and I don't think any of the CRMs have solved that yet. I'm a big fan of Clay. I think that they're doing incredible work, but they're not the only ones. All of the individual players are also, they're not looking at Clay and say, "Oh wow, go eat my lunch." They're all building similar functionality into their products, and you can see that
they're essentially a database, right? They're database tables with AI that's extracting from data points and organizing them effectively.
I think it's a lot more than that.
Okay.
It's a lot more than that because data, in the one hand, is just the data. It's clean. I think today the table stakes is having clean data, whereas that was a big deal. A couple of years ago. I think it's how to leverage the data to do something. How to get those insights, and not to wait until one of us humans figure it out. But it's how do we see it? Like a simple thing that I always talk about, and not enough companies do, is you're a SaaS company. You've got thousands of customers, and then you've got many more thousands of champions or users. Those every month people leave and move to new companies. How are you not tracking that and using that as new for new leads? And it's an easy prompt.
I think it's great. These are great ideas. At a certain point, the marketer has to, or whoever's running the RevOps has to make some choices. And there is another marketing tool or data tool that's pushing. And we can talk about, if it's attribution, if it's intent data, if it's the AI signals.
Dirty words.
There's so many marketing agendas out there. And you probably see it from, someone will just send it, have you heard this? And they'll send it off to you as to, can we integrate that? Can we get that? Just even how we come to accept that listening to calls is not something we should do actively. We should have, a recorder and then a summary and then intent and then a playbook. Are you seeing that the more tools and the certain categories of tools are unlocking more value? Which would be those categories that we should be looking at? I mean, there's a hype cycle and there's the value cycle. What ones are you seeing that have staying power with your companies?
I think it's exactly like you said. There's so much out there, and you get an email every day that's like, wow, why did I think of that? Why did I think of that? And if you run after all the shiny objects, you get no value. It's a matter of picking. Like I spoke to a customer about what I just talked about, and he said, I love that idea, but we're focused on implementing this other idea, right? Which is until we finish extracting all the value out of the attribution or whatever it might be, or we're helping SDRs create email drafts at scale. We're not letting the AI send out the emails like some. I'm sure you're all getting those emails also.
Yeah.
No, but they're doing it in a very a very organized, and I think so. You have to have a process, just like anything else, for testing and trying out new ideas. But you need to limit yourself to the amount that whatever you can afford. I mean, if you've got nobody has endless budgets, but you can run two at a time. Great, do it two at a time. But until you can prove it out and then scale it, don't go to the next one. It's just you're just gonna.
I love that. Can you let us in on the secrets? What's something that we are probably utilizing right now? Yeah.
I think it's I mentioned one before. I don't have to repeat that, which is like champion tracking. I think that the second one is helping the SDR BDR temes do research at scale. It boggles. I've spoken to some SDR agencies that are still not doing that, because their margin is dependent on how many calls or how many connects they make. So why aren't they, because there's so much manual. Every time you find something that's manual, really dissect it and see how can I automate that with value. It's not that you automate it and it gets worse. Automate it and it gets the same or better. And
I'm going to hold you. Go ahead. I wanted to see how are you automating? How are you bringing that into your business? You run a team. What is the automation? You probably have the same calls that every team that you work with has, and you're telling us to automate. So you as an organization, how are you bringing that AI?
But I'm different. I'm not a SaaS company. What I do for myself, we do a lot of testing so we can use it for our customers. But we're not, Howard, I'm sure your company.
You're not aiming for scale, yeah.
I'm not looking to close 20 new customers this month. I'm a services company, and that's another thing that I've learned is scaling responsibly is critical. I learned that a long time ago. It's critical to your brand. So yeah, we do have some automation. If a lead comes in, or if you go to our chat bot, nobody's waiting for me to respond to an email. I don't have to have a sales team anymore. As soon as I get a lead, I've already gotten all the research. I see how many people are at that company, and I can, and it already will tell me if this is a company worth following up with. No, this is not in your. Like we focus on 2 industries, on specific custom company sizes, and we know what our go-to-market is, and we know our personas, and we make sure to focus on that.
That's what I was gonna say as well. Like, you got to know your go-to-market motions, and so that's what I was gonna pop in before. Like, we also don't automate a lot of things. We used to automate almost every step, and now also scaling back, changing our GTM and go-to-market motions strictly to very limited ABM, very high value enterprise, very large ACVs. You don't, maybe using a clay table with 5,000 entries to automate, an email outreach is not the best way to go about earning that business.
Absolutely. That goes to, outbound, how quickly you can burn a market.
Right.
By pissing them all off.
or just not effectively testing, right? We're still running some experiments where we're going after a specific industry and persona, and sometimes you just got to blast it out and see what happens, to test messaging or see what works, because individual outreach, you aren't going to get the right, talked about data, you aren't going to get data at scale in order to make, insightful decisions. You get anecdotes, but you don't really get, a full picture.
It's one of the things that I think we love about where we are right now is me and Mark are more engineering background than creative brains, right? And so to us, it's more, for us, being creative is finding solutions for your crazy ideas. That's it. That's fun. Like, that to us is
I believe
fun.
That's creativity.
It is. It's a different type of creative, right? And I'm talking about the creative brain of coming up with a crazy idea of how to generate leads, or how to get your brand out there and all that. Those are the things that are not we don't have to worry about. It's not like, in our old life is, how many leads did you get us this month? Like, last month you did great, this month you did not good, so we don't like you anymore. So it's less about that. It's more about, how are you keeping our data organized? How is the process running? Like, all the things that it's very technical focus.
Different values.
those are things that are super exciting to us. And so we can bring ideas of things that others are doing, but it's not our job to bring, to say, okay, you should be doing champion tracking. It's like, if you want to do champion tracking, we can get you the best way to do it. Here are two, if you're using Clay, this is the way we do it. If you're using HubSpot and this, you can do it that way. That's really where,
you present the idea, and hopefully it aligns with their strategy and their goals ultimately.
Perry, to take it a little bit personal, I know that you're always on the bike. I mean, every time I see you, you're always gearing up for something. So
tell us about gears.
Yeah, give us a
tip. So no, it's a beautiful thing when you find a passion and a great cause that kind of mesh together. And since Corona, when I had to find a sport that you could leave from your house and come back to your house, and I picked up mountain biking, which meant I could basically go anywhere I want. And then someone introduced me to the Gears founder. His name's Nahum Wasatsky. So they've created really special programs for kids, in need, not just poor kids, but kids that are living in, are taken away from their parents or don't have parents, God forbid, or having all kinds of issues, PTSD, you name all the letters that and found a way to mountain biking, not just throwing them on a mountain bike, but there's actual real workshops that they do with them to help. They're even using it now, that program for soldiers that have come back from the war and kind of need that kind of support. It's a beautiful, beautiful program, and it's so I actively raise money, and I'm really, they're actually now considering changing their CRM, so I'm helping them with that as well.
How many kilometers is the run? Make us drool. How long is it?
It's 50 kilometers. It depends on which program you go. Whichever way. The annual ride is a two-day 50K each day. Yeah. This year it was in the Dead Sea area. Not a very straight. Not a lot of climbing. It's nice. It's more the camaraderie and the people. Yeah, it's a lot. Yeah, just come out with me.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds enjoyable. I need to get a mountain bike.
Yeah, I think that maybe the car. I'll meet you at the end. Maybe that's a great strategy. Perry, one of the great things that you mentioned, I just love your framing here of that as a RevOps house, you're really there to get things done. And I think that really is that the great ideas and maybe the market insights may come from a lot of different places, but for the go-to-market team, you are the people who can execute. And sometimes, like when I heard about your background, how it came from, programming and product and all those different things, it really gave great insight as to why people are so darn needed in this category, because great ideas that are not executed they're just there. And so all the prospect sees is the execution. So I think that just, highlights how you need either a strong RevOps person in the team or a partner who's going to deliver that. So I think that was, that's a clear message from this.
I know we're keeping you a little bit over. I do want to talk about one thing if you have a couple of minutes.
Sure.
So again, going back to on the personal side for me, you brought me into marketing, basically my first marketing role after legal, and I did a touch of sales and account management. One of the things that a lot of people don't know is that agencies like Penguin is like a marketing school. Can you tell us a little bit about the type of people you look for? Because you touched on it. You said now you're focused on operations. Are you still taking a chance on hiring, someone who might not have that specific experience? Being that school for the industry, essentially.
So we hire two types of people. The ones that are, solution architects. Those are people that have a deep understanding of the tech, but also have a really good ability to understand the business, so that they can create architect solutions. The second type is the one you're talking about. We do hire a lot of we hire students or transfers, I call them. You were a transfer.
Yeah, from law.
And one thing I remember, Howard, you're one of the people who, the day you came to say goodbye to me, you said, you know what you told me when you hired me. you said that if you stay here for, I don't remember what I said, but exactly, but you said
Yeah.
something like, if you stay here for 2 years, basically you'll be able to double what you're making. And
Yeah.
so I think that's I think that's a value that we
Yeah.
we continue to bring. And it's hard to find the people that have the patience for that, but you definitely did. And then we've seen that with people that have come to us, students. We take them the 4th year, usually engineers, industrial engineers in their 3rd or 4th year, and by the time they're 2 years out, and if you're in the Israeli ecosystem, and if you need to work for a startup or for a tech company. Right. It's kind of like it's like being at the it's like going to Toronto and not visiting Niagara Falls. I don't know, whatever. Like it's like you're already here. You might as well. So I think that we do prepare, and it's become an incredible. It wasn't on purpose, but I guess now it's more on purpose. It's like they get put out into the world and then they become customers, right? We recently just did a huge project with Fiverr, and that was thanks to an ex-employee that went through that exact program. So it was just you never know, but that's
yes. I'll use this also as an opportunity. I think it is with Daniel, but I'll use this as an opportunity also to publicly thank you for bringing me on and starting me on the journey. Like you said, you took a chance and you made a promise, and it came to fruition. And so thank you. Appreciate it.
Pleasure.
Perry, thank you very much. And from all us penguins and penguin wannabes, we are so grateful that we were able to steal a half hour of your time today. Keep building, my friend.
It was fun. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ciao, Perry.
Bye-bye.
Another great chat.
I think I underappreciate RevOps. And I think it's great to have a sobriety meeting with someone like Perry.
There's so much to talk about, right? Because someone who, like you said, someone came from programming and product, touch of sales, starting his own business as an agency, a marketing agency, a do-it-all. When I was there, that's one of the period where we're doing, email marketing and social media and blogging, content marketing effectively, and demand gen with paid, and as well as SEO, you name it, and all the automation with Hubspot automation. So there's so much to cover, and just was really insightful to see that there's a focus on CRM, particularly HubSpot, right? We've been following their progression as well, up market, and really doubling down on being the go-to solution for many business needs, right? Why make things complex when you can have an all-in-one?
There's a lot about both what Perry is doing and the tools he's using about getting it done. And there's so many. It's just a character trait we look for in teammates, and not everything has to be complexified, as we were talking about.
Yeah.
And here's a tool that can bring in just the right amount of technology to keep things efficient, but on strategy. And I think that's why not just a HubSpot, but why a Perry and a Penguin makes so much sense.
So let me ask you a question. Because back in the day, it was let's do it in-house. Now, with the current market and current strategies and the current budgets that marketing is typically allocated at, a seed or round A startup, would you, leverage agencies more than what you've done in the past?
I believe that.
It's a tough question.
Yeah, it's a tough question. I do really hold that the data and knowing how things flow is core to the company and core to the marketing team. So I think that's true. And
unifier.
It's unifier, and it also is. It guides what is a good decision, what's a bad decision. Otherwise, you were just talking slogans and screenshots, and I think that really, because it brings initiatives to metrics, I think it's got such an important place. And the good news is you can do a lot by yourself with HubSpot. So I would think that that's a core thing to keep in-house, but I do think that if you're not feeling capable, I wouldn't be afraid to get help to make sure it looks good and it's operating and the data hygiene. I think that it's that important. What's your thoughts?
Yeah. Yeah, my thoughts is actually Hubspot has gotten so large in what they can do. And if you're a business that's saying we're ready to start from scratch because the data is so important, everything has to be unified. We can't have like Frankenstein data stacks, even though knowing, certain things Salesforce might be better at. There's certain things that, you know, call recorders like Gong or Chorus or whatever it is that's better at, or Outreach and SalesLoft. Um, but there is something to be said about a centralized, solution. So because it's gotten so big, and you want to make sure that it's all connected, and you need something to unify all the voices because there's a CMO, a VP product, a VP sales, a CRO. Everyone's comes with their different background, that it might be really beneficial to have someone who's expert at tailoring these solutions that could present this is your full end-to-end RevOps architecture.
Yeah.
Best. We've implemented this at tens of different companies, even sometimes when you're doing it for a long time, hundreds of different companies.
Right.
This is the implementation. This is our shared knowledge that someone in-house, unless that person in-house has done it right, 100 times, and you bring on that person. But if you don't have that skill, I think you have to go to agency way.
Howard, is there an alumni group for Penguin?
There is a WhatsApp group from when I was there. We stay in touch, little messages here or there. There's a time where we would get together for dinners and meetups. But yeah, it's you always you try to stay close to the people that you came up with.
Yeah, it must be a powerful group. Anyways, Howard, here we did it. We had another interesting conversation, you and I, and our dear friend Perry, and we've always learned a lot. So that's episode 6, which is
episode 6.
They doubted us.
Yeah. We got to keep going. I just saw today something where it's like, if a company has a podcast that posts weekly versus a company that posts bi-weekly, only twice a month, not twice a week, or bi-monthly, right? It's always confusing. That's posting only twice a month, or skip a week, is doing better. That's not to say we're gonna stop recording, but let's experiment.
Well, the good news is our metrics are about fun, are phenomenal.
Yeah,
not
our metrics
about
fun, right? We're not exactly.
So as long as we're having fun, I'm happy to do it daily. But I don't know what the that's great. So let's keep on our other core metrics. Our KPI is the key fun indicators, and
the key fun indicators.
Yeah,
KFIs.
Our KFIs. So hopefully I'll see you next week, unless we've changed our KFIs and our OKRs. But I'll see you next week.
Yeah, see you next week, and maybe we'll get Spotify up by then. Fingers crossed.
Good goal. Good goal.
All right, take care.
Bye.
Talk to you later. Bye. Later. Bye.